Is it worth it, and will it stick?
I definitely think it's worth it, and I do think it will stick. If you look at a lot of the investment consensus out there, I think a number of large banks have put somewhere around a $200 per share estimate onto Apple, which just shows you, again, increased confidence in all of their categories. I think when you look at Apple's historical performance as well, so many of their businesses have tended to do well, even in times of economic hardship. Not that we're in that now, but I think people are looking at the role that inflation may play in consumer confidence. I think Apple continues to be that pretty safe bet for growth. And I think just look at a number of their growth business opportunities. It's not just iPhone. You've got wearables, you've got AirPods, you've got the Mac now starting to become a growth business that we're particularly really interested in to see how the Mac grows, and bullish on the Mac. So, again, I think investor confidence is really at a significant high for Apple and a number of big tech companies. So I definitely think it will stick, and I think Apple's a really safe growth bet for a lot of funds.
When you look at the near term, though, would you predict drops like we saw after 1T and 2T?
I think you still might see a little bit of variation. I'm not sure we're going to see significant drops because, again, I think people know that the product cycles are really strong. It'll be interesting to see really the commentary that comes out around Apple's December earnings, and just get a sense of what any kind of supply chain, which is really the biggest impact to potential volume, is just what's going on in the semiconductor supply chain. I think demand remains significantly strong for their products. We see that in our research. I know a lot of big funds are seeing that. So I wouldn't expect huge drops. I do think, again, there's some level of drop that happens, but I think the stock continues to grow well over the next year.
Big tech in general added $2.5 trillion in market values just in the last year. Microsoft, Alphabet, Apple, of course. Where do you see that going in 2022?
Yeah, I think a big story is going to continue to be these large tech firms and just their asserted dominance in the markets that they play. I mean, if you just look at the names that you mentioned, with the exception of Apple, which is kind of the rarity in terms of their overall CapEx spend, you got Microsoft, you got Alphabet, you've got Amazon, all spending $30–40 billion in CapEx estimated in 2022 and growing. It makes it really hard for anyone to displace incumbents when it's going to require that level of finances to go into not just cloud, but new consumer hardware. If you think about AR, VR, and headsets, these are expensive, really big bets. And I think that's why there is so much investor confidence in so many of these big tech stocks, because they have the capital to be patient. They have the capital to develop these markets, enter the right products into these markets, and actually satisfy any demand that comes up from there. And so I think that's why you're seeing that continued confidence. And again, your guys' numbers have shown, if they outperform many of these other indexes and other stocks in the market, investors are going to gravitate to those bets that are returning them the consistent the yields that they're looking for.
What are the other tech stocks you're following? I know you've been looking into semis in particular.
Yeah, I'm super bullish on semiconductors. Honestly, I think a lot of semi stocks are really being undervalued. I think if you just look at the baseline, you've got your NVIDIA, you've got AMD, you've got Marvell, Broadcom, a number of these companies that are going to drive this next industry of innovation is so significant. And we rely, I mean, every new category you talk about, automotive, next gen IoT, smart cities, industrial IoT, ARV, I mean, you name it, the semiconductors are going to be the driving force for that. And so when you look at who those real big players are, those are the ones that I think are dominant. Intel's a really interesting one to watch. Honestly, if you look at Intel's PE, it shows you that there's a number of investors who are not sure that the CapEx they're going to spend over the next 4 years to get parity with TSMC on leading edge and really become back into the forefront of leading the industry is going to be worth it. But I think their product strategy is sound. I think they've got a really good lineup. Obviously, getting into GPUs now to create some competition with NVIDIA could be significant. So there's a lot of really great stories around semiconductors that I think people are sleeping on. And interestingly, a lot of funds are actually underweight in terms of their portfolio for semi. So I think there's a lot of room to grow and a lot of innovation ahead that actually gets me really excited about the semiconductor industry.
Then, of course, there's the Metaverse. The Oculus VR headset was a big seller over the holidays. Who's going to win the Metaverse, and is it really going to be that big a deal?
Yeah, metaverse is one of those terms. I'm sure, Emily, you've had plenty of people on talking about different visions of the metaverse. It's really, really challenging. You know, my caution to everybody in the industry when I talk to those looking into the category, building for the category, is we've got to be careful about how early it is and what lessons we learn now. Because oftentimes when you're really early to a category, you learn the wrong lessons. They're not the right either lessons or trend lines or consumer demand that we see. You know, as interesting as Oculus is and this concept of the metaverse, we just don't know what it is yet. There might not be one winner. There might be many winners. We don't know how open it's going to be. It might be much more controlled. Facebook may have a platform. Microsoft may have a platform. Google, Alphabet may have a platform. Apple may have a platform. And to some degree, we don't know how much these might interoperate in the same way that PCs and smartphones, different platforms aren't completely interoperable. So there's going to be some interesting challenges, I think. You know, I think the jury's still out on what consumer engagement looks like with VR yet. I mean, yes, Oculus was a great seller, and I really do think Facebook has a quality product with Oculus. But how long are consumers engaging in these experiences? Is it 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour? Do they use it for more than 6 months? I think these are a range of questions that we still have to develop. And it's just really, really early in the cycle. So again, I think there's a ton of innovation that can happen. It's going to be driven by semiconductors that have to get a lot smaller than they are today to create the kind of immersive experiences we all hope that can fit on our heads or go into a pair of glasses or even other things that we wear. So a lot of innovation is needed. Some big breakthroughs in technology are needed. But I think there's reason to be excited. But at the same time, I think we have to be reasonable in our approach of how fast this category will develop.